My name is Roger Caldwell. I'm 57 years old, and for 15 years I was the man who paid for Thanksgiving, while everyone at the table said I had a habit of ruining it. I want you to sit with that for just a second. 15 years, 15 October Sundays, the hall rental, the catering, the centerpieces my daughter picked out, the open bar my son-in-law poured freely from. Every invoice came to my account. Every thank you landed on someone else's shoulders. And the year I finally stopped, the calls started at 3 in the afternoon. I'll get there. But first, let me take you back to where it began to crack open. The September my son-in-law told the neighbors from down the street that I was the one thing about Thanksgiving his wife couldn't fix. The planning was always at my daughter's place. A Sunday morning in late September, when the leaves on her street were just starting to turn, and the whole house smelled like those pumpkin candles she bought in bulk from the chapters on Stone Road. She had a notebook. My daughter always had a notebook. She sat at the kitchen island and went through the list the way someone reads off a work agenda. Who brings what, who handles which task, who was to arrive at what time. She got to me last. "Dad, just focus on getting there on time this year," she said in that soft, diplomatic voice she used when other people were listening. My son-in-law was leaning against the counter. "We'll handle everything else." He gave one of those slow nods, the nod of a man who considers himself the adult in every room he walks into. I nodded too, sure. What none of them knew, what nobody ever asked, was that 2 days earlier I had already transferred the deposit to the Millbrook Stonebridge Inn. $1,150. Same as the year before, same as the year before that. Nobody ever asked whose card was on file. They never had to. It started the way these things always do, gradually and with the best intentions on my part. After my wife Linda passed, 12 years ago come November, pancreatic cancer, 11 weeks from diagnosis to the end. The house went very quiet. My daughter was 21. My son Ian was 16. The kind of quiet that settles in after loss isn't peaceful. It has weight. I didn't know what to do with weight except to keep things moving. Linda had loved Thanksgiving the way some people love a second religion. The table set right, the food from scratch, the family in one room without anyone staring at a phone. After she was gone, I kept doing it. Small at first, just the kids, my sister Hazel, a couple of Linda's cousins who didn't want to be alone. But families grow and attach new people to themselves, and by the 4th year the gathering had outgrown my dining room. My daughter suggested the Millbrook Stonebridge, beautiful old country and east of town, private room in the back, enough space for 20 people, and a proper bar cart. I thought it was a fine idea. "I'll look after the booking," I said. So I did, and then I kept looking after it. Year after year, the October invoice landed in my inbox, and I paid it the way I paid my hydro bill, without ceremony, without waiting for anyone to notice. The total each year ran somewhere between $2,800 and $3,400 by the time you added the catering package, the bar tab, and the gratuity. I'm not saying that to make a point about money. I'm saying it so you understand what kind of invisible I had become. $30,000 a year, and not a single person at that table ever once wondered who was writing the check. Here's what a man learns, if he keeps himself quiet and pays attention. There's a moment, somewhere around the 3rd or 4th year, when the story starts to shift. It happens so slowly you barely notice. At first you're the one who arranged the dinner. Then you're the one who took care of the booking. Then one October you're standing at the end of the table near the kitchen door, listening to your daughter accept compliments from the neighbors about what a beautiful job she does pulling it all together, and nobody corrects her. She didn't start lying outright. It's more subtle than that. She just stopped mentioning where the money came from. And when people stopped asking, the story wrote itself. 3 years ago, my son-in-law gave a toast. He thanked his wife for another incredible Thanksgiving. He thanked the inn for their hospitality. He thanked the family for making the drive up. He did not mention me. I held my wine glass and let it go, the way I'd learned to let things go, because what's the alternative? Stand up and say, "Actually, I paid for all of this"? You don't do that. You sit at the far end of the table and you tell yourself that family isn't a ledger, that love doesn't need a receipt, that a good father does what he does quietly. The trouble is, when you believe that long enough, other people start to believe something else entirely. I found out how far it had gone on a Saturday afternoon in mid-September. My daughter had asked me to drop off some folding chairs she'd borrowed. I pulled into her driveway, heard voices from the side yard, and walked around the back. My son-in-law was out there with two men from down the street, weekend barbecue types, comfortable in the way men get when they want to be liked. He had a beer. He was doing that thing he does when he's closing a room. I stopped at the gate. They couldn't see me. Honestly, the whole thing runs like clockwork at this point, he was saying. Audrey's built it up year after year. The venue, the menu, everything. The woman doesn't miss a detail. One of the neighbors laughed, said something about how it put their own family dinners to shame. Right? My son-in-law tilted his bottle. Her dad shows up, eats, and usually finds something to make awkward, but other than that, smooth sailing every year. The other man said something I didn't catch. He means well, my son-in-law said. He just gets in the way more than he helps. I stood on the other side of that gate with 4 folding chairs in my arms and 15 years of bank transfers behind me, and something very quiet happened inside me. Not anger. I keep waiting, even now, to feel the anger, and it still doesn't quite arrive. What arrived was clarity, the kind you get when the fog you've been driving through for years just lifts, and you can see the whole road for the first time. How you got here, and exactly where here is. I set the chairs down against the fence post. I walked back to my truck. I drove home on the 401 and didn't turn on the radio. That night, I opened my laptop and started going back through the accounts. I spent 30 years in provincial infrastructure planning. Numbers don't embarrass you. Numbers don't smile at you across a dinner table and tell you to sit down and let the grown-ups handle it. I went back through 15 years of October transactions, the inn deposits, the catering invoices, the gratuity, the years I paid for the centrepieces because my daughter had picked them out and hadn't thought to build them into a budget, the year Linda's cousin needed a cab home from Guelph and I covered it without a word. When I was done, the total sat on my screen in the dark kitchen. I won't give you the exact figure, but I'll tell you this. It was enough to replace a roof and have money left over. Enough that my financial advisor, if I'd told him, would have looked at me with that particular quiet disappointment advisors use when clients have done something that does not compute. I sat with it for a long time. Then I did the harder math, the kind that doesn't live in a spreadsheet. In 15 years of paying for that dinner, how many times did I feel like a father who belonged at that table, rather than a problem to be managed around? How many times did someone ask about my week, my health, my life, and actually wait for the answer? I counted. I took my time. The number was small enough that I didn't write it down. I called the Millbrook Stone Bridge first thing Monday morning. A woman answered, calm and professional. I told her I was the account holder for the annual October booking, and I wanted to cancel my reservation and the auto-renewal going forward. A pause, some typing. Mr. Caldwell, you've had this same booking with us for, another pause, looks like 14 years. Is everything all right at home? Everything is fine, I said, but the person who actually organizes the event is my daughter. If she wants to rebook the room, she can call and set it up in her own name. I'll give you her number. I'm not leaving anyone without options. I just won't be the one holding the account. I made the same call to the catering company, the same call to the audio rental outfit my daughter had added 3 years back when she decided Thanksgiving needed a playlist. Same words each time. I'm stepping back from the account. If my daughter wants to continue the booking, she's welcome to do that in her own name, on her own card. I'm not stiffing anyone. I just won't be signing for it. 4 phone calls, less than an hour, 15 years undone before my second cup of coffee went cold. When I hung up the last one, I sat in my kitchen and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief, plain, uncomplicated relief. My daughter called Wednesday evening, bright, quick, the way she opens every conversation when she wants something handled before she has to think about it too hard. Hey Dad, so the inn left me a weird message about the booking being under a different account now. Can you sort that out when you get a chance? And the catering company called Patsy and she said, I canceled the accounts, I said. A beat. You what? The room, the catering, all of it. I won't be covering it this year. If you want to do Thanksgiving at the Stonebridge, you'll need to book it yourself, in your name, on your card. The silence that followed was different, not confused, processing. Dad, her voice shifted. We have 23 people confirmed. The kids are expecting. Audrey, I kept my voice even, the way you do when you've thought something through completely and there's nothing left to resolve. I've been paying for that dinner since you were 21, every year. The full amount. I don't think you ever actually knew what that number was. Of course I knew you paid. Did you know the number? Quiet. The inn will need to hear from you by Friday if you want to hold the date, I said. They book up fast this time of year. Dad, you can't just. Her voice climbed. Who does this 3 weeks before Thanksgiving? Do you have any idea what this looks like? Is this about the kids? You want them to have no Thanksgiving because of some grudge? I don't want anyone to have a bad Thanksgiving, I said. I want to stop paying for a dinner I'm only welcome to fund. She told me that was unfair, that the family did so much for me. I almost said something. I didn't. The inn will need to hear from you by Friday, I said again. I told her good night. I meant it kindly. Then I set the phone down on the counter and watched it light up once more. By Thursday, the family had weighed in. Cousins I hadn't spoken to since the summer. Linda's brother from Barrie, a family friend who just wanted to check in. Every message wore the same coat. We're worried, Roger. This isn't like you. Audrey's upset. Don't let pride wreck the holiday for the grandchildren. One cousin used the word unreasonable. I sat in my recliner and read them all, and I felt the old familiar thing start up at the base of my spine. The guilt. 15 years of it knows where you live. For about an hour I nearly folded. I'm not too proud to tell you that. Just pay it, Roger. Keep the peace. It's one dinner. It's family. That voice is soft and it wears the face of love, and it had cost me a very long time. Then my phone buzzed, my sister. I've watched this for years and held my tongue because it wasn't my house. That was my mistake. Don't fold now, Roger. I'm with you all the way. Hazel doesn't use exclamation points or emojis. She doesn't waste a word. When she says she's with you, she means it in the old way. She'll stand in the cold next to you without being asked twice. I set the phone in my lap and let the rest of the calls ring out. My son-in-law came Friday night. Headlights in my driveway, then a knock that was heavier than it needed to be. I opened the door. We need to talk, Roger. Come in, then. He didn't sit. He stood in my living room and looked around it, like a man running numbers on a property. You're putting Audrey in an impossible position, he said. She's trying to hold this family together, and you're pulling the rug out 3 weeks before the event. You think that's fair? What commitment did I make exactly? I asked. That stopped him for half a second. You always pay. Everyone knows that. Everyone assumed that, I said. That's different. His face went tight. You're doing this because your feelings got hurt. That's what this actually is. I thought about the gate, his voice carrying across my daughter's backyard. He just gets in the way more than he helps. I decided he didn't need to know I'd heard it. Not yet. Some things a man doesn't hand over. The contracts have names on them, I said. The name that's on them pays. That's always how it's worked. You just never had to read them. He told me I was embarrassing the family. He told me I was being bitter. He told me that Audrey had built something real, and I was tearing it down. I walked to the front door and opened it. The October air came in, cool and clean. Good night, I said. Drive safe. He left. He had to. There was nothing left to say to a man who'd finally stopped agreeing. I locked the door behind him and stood in the quiet of my own hallway. It was a good kind of quiet. I asked my son Ian to go. He was the only person in that family I trusted to see things plainly and tell me afterward what he'd seen. He's 28, Ian. Fixes HVAC systems for a living, has since he finished his apprenticeship in Kitchener. He has Linda's eyes and her way of going still before he says something that matters. I told him I needed one honest witness in that room. He said he'd go. No argument. He called me from the parking lot at 3 on Thanksgiving Sunday. Dad, his voice was low. The inn called Audrey at the table. The room balance is due on arrival, and her card isn't clearing. I was at home, small turkey breast in the oven. Hazel was coming over at 4. How is she holding up? I asked. She's keeping it together out front, he said. But I can see her from where I'm sitting, and she's not keeping it together. My phone had started lighting up around 3. The inn's main number, the catering company. My daughter twice, my son-in-law once. An unknown number that was almost certainly a vendor trying to reach whoever was supposed to be responsible for the night. I let them ring. I sat at my kitchen table in the quiet of a house where, For the first time in 15 Octobers, I hadn't written a check for someone else's Thanksgiving. It was Hazel who told me to go. She arrived at my place at 3:45, stamped the mud off her boots in the entryway, and looked at me the way she's been looking at me since we were kids on Earl Street. "You need to be in that room," she said. "I've already said everything I needed to say." "Roger." She set her bag down. "You spent 15 years being invisible. Don't make yourself invisible again tonight, just stay comfortable." She looked at my coat on the hook by the door. "Go be seen, not to pay, not to rescue anyone, just to be there when the truth is standing in the room." I looked at the coat for a moment. "I'm leaving my wallet on the counter," I said. "Good," she said, "leave it." I drove to the Millbrook Stonebridge with nothing in my pockets but my keys. The private room was warm. Same autumn centerpieces my daughter had chosen, the kind with the dried wheat and the small gourds. Same faces around the table, gone a little still when I walked through the doorway. My daughter saw me from across the room. For just a half second, I saw something move across her face that I recognized from when she was young. Relief. "Dad's here, it'll be sorted." She crossed toward me. "Dad, thank God. Tell them there's been a misunderstanding. You'll handle the balance, right? You always." She stopped herself. Just barely. On the word always. I stayed where I was, just inside the door. "There's no misunderstanding," I said. The room had done that thing rooms do when people sense something about to change. "I canceled my accounts. Whoever's hosting pays for it. That's all that's happened." "You're doing it again." Her voice sharpened, reaching for the old script. "You always find a way to make the evening about you." "Audrey," I didn't raise my voice. "I found you rarely need to. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped paying for a table I was never actually invited to sit at." The room went so still, I could hear the kitchen. Into that stillness, the catering manager stepped forward, a quiet professional woman who had nothing to do with any of this and was only trying to do her job. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said carefully. "I just need to confirm the payment arrangement for this evening. When Miss Pemberton rebooked the event last week, we set the balance as due on arrival, and I've been unable to process." She paused, looked between me and my daughter. "I want to mention, our records show this event has been under the same account for 14 years. Mr. Caldwell's account." She said it plainly, not trying to cause trouble, just telling the truth because confusion makes people honest. I assumed this year would be the same until Ms. Pemberton called to take over the booking. I should have flagged the change then. I'm sorry for any confusion. The room did the math without being asked to. I watched it happen. Linda's brother from Barry set his fork down. The cousins exchanged a look. The neighbors, friends of my daughter's, people who'd been hearing for years about what a remarkable job Audrey did organizing this gathering, went very quiet. My son-in-law was standing near the window. I watched his face do the thing faces do when the story they've been telling stops holding together. Ian was across the room. He met my eyes and gave me a small nod. My daughter's face, the performance came off it, like a light going out. Underneath it was something younger, something frightened. "Dad," she started. I never thought about." "I know," I said. And I meant it. I believed her. She had never had to think about it. That was the problem I had built over 15 years by making it so easy not to. I didn't say anything more. Some moments ruin themselves if you talk over them. I didn't stay long after that. I'd come to be seen, and I had been. I walked back through the lobby and out into the evening air of a Thanksgiving that had finally, quietly, told the truth about itself. Ian caught up to me at my truck. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm okay," I said, and the strange thing was I meant it completely. He stood there with his hands in his jacket pockets. The cold was coming off the pavement. "I wanted to say something in there," he said, "about what you actually did for this family, about what those 15 years cost you." He looked at the ground. I didn't know how to do it without it sounding like I was making a speech. "You can say it now." He looked up. "You kept Thanksgiving going after Mom died, Dad. Nobody else was going to do that. You did it because you loved her and you were trying to hold on to what she'd built." He stopped, and we let you pay for it and told ourselves you were lucky to be included. I put my hand on his shoulder for a moment. "Go back inside," I said. "Keep an eye on your sister." He nodded, once, the way his grandfather used to. The gathering broke up early. People drifted out, around 5, politely. The way people leave when the air has gone out of a room. My daughter put what she could on her card and arranged a payment plan with the inn for the rest. The full weight of one Thanksgiving, something she'd never had to carry before, landing on her all at once. I won't pretend I felt nothing hearing that. You don't spend 15 years loving someone and stop overnight. What I felt was grief, mostly. Grief that it had taken this long. Grief that I had made it so easy to avoid. The story moved through the family, the way stories do in small communities. By November, Linda's brother had called to apologize. The cousin who'd used the word unreasonable left a long voicemail that was uncomfortable and genuine, and I accepted it without making her feel worse than she already did. My son-in-law went quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from a man who realizes the impression he made in front of the neighbors is the one he'll be living with for a while. He sells commercial real estate. The neighbors he'd performed for on that patio were the same people he hoped to do business with eventually. That currency once spent doesn't come back quickly. Hazel and Ian came to my place for Thanksgiving that year. I made Linda's stuffing from the recipe she wrote on the back of an envelope 23 years ago, which I still keep in the drawer next to the stove. We ate at the kitchen table. We talked about her. We laughed a few times in the good way, not the polite way. It was the best Thanksgiving I could remember in 15 years. 3 weeks later, my daughter called. Not bright, not breezy, just tired in the way people get when something honest has finally caught up with them. "Can I come over?" she asked, "just me." She sat at my kitchen table and was quiet for a long time then. "I looked at all of it," she said. "Ian helped me pull together the statements, every year." She shook her head slowly. "I knew you paid, Dad. I did. But I never looked at the number. Not once. I told myself you liked doing it, that it was your way, that you were fine." She turned her mug in both hands. "I let Lance say things about you, and I didn't stop him. I don't know what I thought. I think I just stopped thinking about it. I let the quiet sit." "I'm 33 years old," she said, "and I don't know how to put together a family dinner that I actually pay for myself. You just always did it, and I let you, and I never once said thank you." That last sentence, that was the one I'd stopped expecting. "Thank you, Dad," she said, "for all of it every year." "I forgive you," I told her. Not because the apology was perfect, or because she'd earned it through suffering. Because carrying it was heavier than setting it down, and I was done with heavy things that weren't mine. She cried a little. I put my arm around my daughter, and for the first time, in a very long time, it didn't cost me a thing. Here's what I know now that I wish someone had told me at 40. You cannot buy your way into belonging. You can only keep paying until the people around you forget that belonging was ever the question. The day I stopped writing the checks was the day I started being seen. I keep my worth now. I'm not handing it over again. Not for a dinner. Not for a room full of people who could not have told you, right up until the moment the card declined, whose name had been quietly holding the whole thing together for 14 years. The following October, we did Thanksgiving at my house. Ian brought his girlfriend, a straightforward, funny woman who asked me about my years in infrastructure planning and actually waited for the answer. Hazel came early and took over the kitchen halfway through, which was exactly right, and my daughter came, without her husband, who she was working things out with in the slow way that takes longer than anyone hopes, and she brought a pie she had made herself. Lopsided, overdone on one side, carried through my front door with both hands like something precious. I told her it was the best pie I'd seen in a long time. She laughed, and it sounded like her mother. We sat down together. I sat at the head of my own table, not because I'd paid for it, but because my family put me there. And nobody, not once that whole evening, called me the man who ruined Thanksgiving.